Welcome, everyone. It is James Palcic here from Science Safety. I am the CEO. And of course, joining me tonight is the esteemed, infamous Dr. Ken Roy, who is our Chief Safety Officer. And Dr. Ken and I, but mostly Dr. Ken, will be presenting safer strategies for new STEM teachers, which just sounds a little bit nicer and less harsh than new teachers are recognized risks in the STEM instructional space. But ultimately, that is what tonight's session is all about. Now, I will be disappearing from the screen until needed by Dr. Ken, of course. We'll let Dr. Ken proceed. But really, that bottom bullet point there is what tonight is all about. It's that new teachers really are recognized risks in the schools, and it's for a multitude of different factors, but there they are. Inexperience in providing safer teaching and learning in those instructional spaces, and that just comes because they're new. They haven't had the face time with their students. Also, a lack of safety training. I can't tell you how many new teachers are out there that have never had any formal, let alone informal, appropriate safety training. And there's a whole lot of other things that Dr. Ken has put together for us tonight. And all of this is in an effort to make our schools safer. And with that, Dr. Ken, I'm going to talk a little bit about your esteemed career thus far. So Dr. Ken Roy is the current Director of Environmental Health and Safety and the Chemical Hygiene Officer, in addition to being the designated Asbestos Compliance Coordinator, PCB Program Coordinator, Silica Compliance Coordinator, and all of this in Glastonbury Public Schools in New England, located in Connecticut. Not only does he do that, but he's also the Chief Science Safety Compliance Advisor and Chief Safety Blogger for the National Science Teaching Association. He's the Safety Compliance Officer for NSELA, or the National Science Education Leadership Association. And now look at this. He has written 13 books on science and STEM, all about safety and procedures, and over 850 safety articles, some co-authored with some very well-known people as well.
Couldn't help yourself, could you?
I wasn't talking about me. You've done them with others as well. And all of those are in professional journals. They're in associations that you can see there on the bottom. A lot of them you can find online by Googling Dr. Ken's name. And as mentioned, I am the Chief Executive Officer here at Science Safety. I also host a program called Safer Ed on Ed Circuit. I was with Flynn Scientific for many years. I, however, have only written 3 science and STEM lab books. And but I am the safety reviewer for the Perimeter Institute for Theoretical Physics. And I've been on about 150 podcasts and written multiple articles, many of them co-authored with Dr. Ken Roy right here, all on legal safety standards and accepted better professional safety practices in science, STEM, and CTE. Many of those you can find on edcircuit.com. Dr. Ken, what a great slide for you to take over with. I'm giving you the controls. Enjoy.
Well, again, as JP said, welcome everyone. Glad you could spend time with us this evening for this really critical point of safety. No two ways about it. And as you will see, as you move forward throughout your career, safety hopefully will be a great support of a good teaching, learning environment that you'll be in your instructional space, be it a laboratory, classroom, whatever. Look at this. Oh, by the way, none of these are staged. Any photos you see here, it's the real deal. Nothing is staged. If you will look, you have 2 younger students, and you'll see the instructors in the background. They're dealing with something, glassware, chemicals, et cetera, et cetera. And my first thought is, look at the eye protection. or I should say lack thereof, appropriate eye protection. Safety glasses. Safety glasses are fine with certain types of hazards, which we call physical hazards, like springs, projectiles, et cetera, et cetera. But when you are dealing with biological or chemical hazards, right, especially liquids that can splash, that type of eye protection is almost useless. Yes, you heard me right. It's almost useless. The reason being, like prescription glasses that I have on, they're open at the top, on the sides, all right? Splash can go right into the eye, and got scientific research that shows the eye's going to get it directly, all right? They need indirectly vented chemical splash goggles. Indirectly vented chemical splash goggles. Because with that, you are sealed all over. The flames goes all the way around, all right? And therefore, the liquid cannot be splashed into your eyes. If there's any splash, these poor kids are going to get it. And if that is a real hazardous type of chemical, it could literally blind them, right? So beware, please beware. When you have students working with biological or chemical hazards, make sure that they have on indirectly vented chemical splash goggles, not safety glasses, because basically they're useless. Next.
Oh no, we're not quite finished yet, Dr. Ken.
Well, it all depends. If depending on the degree of the hazard, most certainly, they should have on gloves, preferably nitrile type gloves, and they should have aprons or coats, primarily aprons you find with students, just to cover them, the main part of their body, their chest area, again, in case there is a splash. I would hope at an elementary level where these students are working that would not be the case, even though they should still, to protect their clothing and the like, they should have those on.
That is absolutely correct. You get a gold star.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. In the background, though, I would say that the student with the longer hair that's falling, that should be pulled back, tied back, because you never know what they're using. And if it was my classroom, I'd make sure they were doing that on a spill catcher tray so that it wasn't all over the desktop or tabletop in that instructional space. And ideally, you would label what those are. But that's me as that, letter of the law type of a person. But this image right here is used by publishers, suppliers. It's the most popular elementary STEM image in 2023 on the internet. So you're absolutely right. They're promoting completely incorrect safety procedures.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You can't sometimes believe what you see.
And speaking of, there's more.
Well, here we go again. Now we've just moved up to the secondary level. Okay. And at the secondary level, we are looking at several students. First of all, look at the closeness. Again, if there's a splash, more than one could get it. So first of all, it's just like if you're working in a shop or a lab space, a construction area where you're dealing with power tools and the like, right? You have safety zones. When they're this close, again, if something shatters, if it splashes, they're all going to get it, right? They're all going to get it. So they should not be that close. Now, the other piece here, as we saw with the previous one, eye protection, excuse me, totally incorrect. Again, you must have indirectly vented chemical splash goggles. You'll see one of them has the hair hanging down. If they were using, never mind chemicals, if they were using a Bunsen burner, she'd become a lighthouse if she gets sparks or flames on her hair. All right, same thing with the other one on her shoulder. All right, so you always want to make sure totally tied back, right? Again, hands, flesh, exposure, burns. You need to have nitrile gloves on when you're dealing with any kind of chemical like that. Now, they do have lab coats. However, even with the lab coats, you want to make sure that they are buttoned up, that they're not wide open, because what's the use of having them, right? So again, in that particular case, you want to make sure, again, quick recap, eye protection is incorrect, no hand protection, body protection, not that great, and too close. If the work zone, It needs to be spread out.
Exactly. They're on top of each other. That's
Yeah,
not, that's a proximity safety concern.
it is unsafe.
And
Absolutely
again,
unsafe.
this is another image that is available all over the place in science education. People put this up on their districts when they promote their high school science programs. Again, totally incorrect. And as a new teacher coming in, you may not be able to recognize those things that Ken and I point out on a daily basis. So I hope that this is educational as we're moving along here, because we like to do things in threes here. Ken, here's your favorite. I know.
Oh, no, no, no,
Yes,
no.
yes, here it is.
Oh, on and on it goes. Anyway, here we go again. Now, not only are the students on top of each other, but you'll see the instructor or instructors that are there in the upper right-hand corner. No, no, no. Again, distance is critical, absolutely critical. Now, the good news, and there is some good news here, they do have indirectly vented chemical splash goggles on. All right, very good. Hair is still a problem, as you can see. Hand protection, same deal. And no aprons or coats, either one. I do prefer the aprons because that you get more protection in the middle of the body with an apron compared to a cloth type of coat, whatever. But anyway, that's the deal there. So again, the important thing, eye protection is correct, but a lot of other errors, including the hair, the hands, the body, etc.
Now, Dr. Ken, a question just came in, and it's a great one. It revolves around one of our favorite topics, which is occupancy loads, as you and I love to passionately discuss. And the question is, what do you do when you have crowded science laboratories?
First of all, you are the one that determines if it is safe or not in your instructional space, not the principal, not the administration, not even the supervisor. All right. In the eyes of the law, you are the one who has the degree. You're the one supposedly either has or will have the experience. So legally, you're the one that determines, is this safe or not? Right. And if you feel it is unsafe, in other words, you're saying to yourself, hey, there are too many people in here. And the first thing you need to do is to find out what exactly is the occupancy load under NFPA 101 Life Safety Code. Again, that's the NFPA 101 Life Safety Code. You can find out there, it's 50 square feet net per occupant. 50 square feet net per occupant. Usually on architectural prints, you can get from facilities department for your instructional space. And it usually tells you on there what the occupancy load is. The point is this: if you feel you're over the occupancy load, or even with the occupancy, you might even be within the occupancy load, but you might have too many other things in there. And depending on what kind of activity you're doing, it could be a problem also. You feel it's unsafe, right? You need to certainly stop. Do not do the activity. Number one, contact your supervisor, your chemical hygiene officer, and your building administrator. And you explain to them what your concerns are about this, that it's totally overcrowded, they're bumping into each other, there's a risk of spillage, breakage, et cetera, et cetera. And because you believe it is unsafe, you are temporarily stopping hands-on activities in the lab. Now, that's a real red flag for administration. Let me tell you why. The guidance department has to certainly state to universities and colleges that your students are receiving 1, 2, or 3, depending what university or college they're going to, hands-on science, right? Science laboratories. If you're not doing hands-on laboratories, then there's a faux pas. They can't tell them, can't tell the university or colleges that, oh yeah, we're doing real science. They have hands-on experiences. That's what the colleges are looking for, right? So that's a red flag. So be prepared. But you need to tell them, and you need to also put it in writing to cover yourself. If worse comes to worse, you can contact your union, or if you're brave, you can contact the local fire marshal and have the fire marshal come in to determine what exactly is the occupancy load, right? That is really important before you do any hands-on activity, even sometimes demonstrations, right? You need to make sure you have not surpassed the occupancy load of that instructional space. Because if you haven't, if there's an accident legally, you will be responsible. You don't want to be there.
Well said. And that again is the NFPA 101 Life Safety Standard, occupancy loads for laboratories. And the equation is 50 net square feet per occupant after you remove furniture, fixtures, and equipment out of the room.
Just one comment I want to make. If you're just in a regular classroom, a math class, right? Language arts, foreign language, whatever. The occupancy load is only 20 square feet net. You heard me right, 20 square feet. It's 2.5 times greater in a lab. Why? Because of all the additional hazards you have that are not there in those other types of subject area classrooms. So it's critical that you maintain that occupancy load and make sure that the administration is aware of that. Don't assume. I know places where the administrators have just, oh, don't worry, we'll just put in some extra desks. You're crawling over each other. I've been in lawsuits with this. I do expert witness work. Trust me, do not assume for one moment. Hopefully the chemical hygiene officer would know, and you may even have to enlighten sometimes the chemical hygiene officer. But for the most part, remember, you're the one responsible. You're the one that determines if it's safe or not. And if you don't believe it's safe, don't do the hands-on activities, please. Okay.
You're right. There are inherent risks.
Okay. Now, what is safer? Now, notice that's in a quote. Notice we didn't say safe. You can't make it safe. I know that's hard to believe, but it's true. You can't make it safe. You can only make it safer by following legal safety standards and better professional safety practices. All right. So whenever you talk to your students, you talk to your other employees, paras, etc., your supervisors, your administrators, parents, never say, oh, just put on your indirect event chemical splash goggles, aprons, you'll be safe. Or we watch out for the safety. Students are always safe in here. Please, only say they're safer. You can't make it safe. But doing these things, the protocols and the like, you can absolutely, and the research shows that you can make it safer. Is safety an outcome or something that we do as responsible STEM educators? Now remember, STEM, we're talking about science labs, we're talking about tech ed, engineering, math, etc. There are multiple aspects of safety to consider when teaching and learning within school science, CTE, and art departments. Yes, art is even in here, based on legal safety standards and better professional safety practices. As I said, these are critically important for every educator, administrator, and student in the system. Let's explore the most important safety practices to help new teachers offer engaging and inspiring lessons with hands-on activities. Forget about kids reading about science. Let them do it on their own time. You want them to be doing. That's what you have a laboratory for as an instructional space, all right? To do the science, get their hands, I won't say dirty, but get their hands active, all right? For safer choices in STEM instructional spaces. And remember that safety is a verb, meaning it is active.
Yes, it's not something you just do at the beginning of the semester and forget about. It's something that happens all the time. It needs to become automatic, like putting a seatbelt on when you get in your car. Sorry, Ken, I get a little passionate about that one because I love it.
I hadn't noticed. Safety qualification training, all right? Under OSHA, CFR's Code of Federal Regulations, 1910 is general industry, 1450 is called the laboratory standard. Yes, if you're teaching science and you're in a lab instructional space, you're special. If I am in tech ed engineering, if I'm in art, I'm under the HASCOM, the right to understand. But you are under the laboratory standard. All right, you're legally required to have annual appropriate safety training. Annual means yearly. I know some administrators are clueless on that term, right? But annually, receive safety training upon initial hire. When you first come in, within the first week or so, you need to have appropriate safety training. Receive safety training upon a new assignment. Let's say this year you're teaching biology, and oh gee, supervisor comes up to you and says, the director said, well, you know, we have an extra class of chemistry next year, and we thought we'd have you teach that. Well, that's a new assignment. You need additional safety training. Receive safety training when there are changes in the chemical hygiene plan, and usually that is an annual event, right? Because the chemical hygiene plan is required to be updated every year. Annually, every year. Receive safety training when there are new hazardous chemicals in the chemical inventory, right? And usually, remember, that's normally an evolutionary, though sometimes revolutionary, means chemicals change and their hazards and resulting risks change when you change the chemicals that you're using. So recent key findings, what the data tells us, this is a very important study that was done several years ago by myself and Dr. Tyler Love, Penn State University. 35% of the teachers of STEM and CTE do not have any formalized safety training. Oh, wait a minute. I thought they said annually. Yeah, right. All right. Teachers go in, they're like throwing them to the wolves. All right. They're not trained. Give me a flipping break. All right. And without the training, oh yeah, they'll go, oh, don't worry about it. You're held harmless. You just do with your teeth. No. You have to have appropriate training or you don't do it. Completing formalized safety training can reduce accidents. Well, look at this. I told you training absolutely influences safety and makes it safer. All right. Safety and makes it safer. All right. So reduces accidents by 51%. That's what the study showed. All right. So that's amazing to me. That's absolutely amazing. But
that is statistically remarkable, actually.
I think we call that statistically significant. Oh,
well,
sorry.
Yeah, you are correct. Now, a question just came in when you were talking about the safety training qualifications on an annual basis. The question is, I was told I need to train every 3 years instead of annually. I know what my answer to that is, but Dr. Ken, what's yours?
What I would suggest you do, first of all, you have to determine if your school district is under federal OSHA, is under a state-approved OSHA plan, or if it's under the Department of Labor, right? The bottom line here is if you're required, and basically, even if it's not legal safety standard, better professional practice. Look at the NSTA safety site. It tells you every year you are supposed to receive training. So that is a legal thing, right? Go to the NSTA website and take a look at the papers that they have on the safety papers they have, and you will see it tells you right there, and share that with the administration, right? I'm sorry, every 3 years, totally unacceptable, and it's not legal. And remind them that you're helping to protect them by making them aware of this, right? So tell them, don't take it personal, nothing personal. I'm just trying to cover both our butts.
And Ken, there's a follow-up, a part B to that question, which is we typically do a longer half-day or full-day training and then do 2 refreshers in the following years, talking about things that we need to know, the essentials, and then any updates that we need, and then do every 3rd year, do the big one again. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, OSHA said you need to be trained like with chemical hygiene plan. If you are a veteran teacher there, all right, you've been trained with the big one already, and years next, 2nd, 3rd year, deal with the updates of the chemical hygiene plan and other information, that's fine. But if you are a new teacher there, That's unacceptable. If you come in on year 2 and year 3, they must do a separate one for you, which is the full-blown one.
Correct. To elevate everyone to that same level
Yep,
of the awareness. Agreed.
absolutely.
Oh,
Yep.
it's like you and I write books together. This is great.
Oh, stop.
Okay, Ken, here comes your favorite question.
Which grade level from K to 12 has the most accidents? Okay, which has the most accidents? Is it an elementary, middle, or high school grade? Why do you believe there is a difference in potential safety hazards and resulting health and safety risks in one grade level more than any other? Knowing the answer, what will you do differently to prevent being part of this preventable statistic?
So put your answers in the chat box. Ken and I can't wait to see what grade levels you think have the most accidents between kindergarten and grade 12. I'll read them off, Ken, as they come in. All right, here they go. Middle schools. Okay, great guess. We'll see what the answer is. Somebody said to me, grade 1. They just sent that privately, so it wasn't public. What else do we have here? Oh, we have grade 12. Okay, I can see that.
Yep.
Grade 6, grade 6, middle, middle. All right, it looks like a consensus of middle schoolers seems to be what people are believing. But let's see. Oh, one more just came in. Elementary. All
Yep,
right.
I see it. I see it.
And Ken, should I? You ready for the reveal?
70%. Can you that's 7 out of 10 of the science accidents K through 12 occur in grade 9.
That
Now,
is
what
remarkable.
is so special about grade 9? You know, initially, I agree initially without looking at the research or not having the experience, I would agree with elementary and or middle. Because you'd say, well, my God, I mean, after all that training, all those years, how could that possibly be?
Well,
Yes.
there's a whole host of reasons, and we know what they are because we've studied that research, we've validated and calibrated against it. And when we tell you, it'll make perfect sense. Which, when you're a new teacher in a high school, you are typically assigned grade 9.
Aha.
Because the teachers who are in grade 9 and 10 can't wait to get out and become a full-time biology, chemistry, physics, environmental teacher. And that is the area where most accidents occur. That's the first time that students are typically exposed to the inherent hazards just from being in that room, plus all the materials, apparatus, equipment, chemicals,
Right.
all of that good stuff that goes along with a science program. And then there's the biochemistry aspect of, I believe the Greek term, help me out here, Dr. Ken, is called hormonies that happen around grade 9. And there's a whole lot of dysfunction associated with that. And
That's
it
also
would probably not
basically,
scare. Oh, go ahead.
yeah, no, basically just saying, it's a developmental issue in part.
It is
Uh,
the perfect intersection of a crisis because of
yep,
all of those
absolutely.
things lining up right there in
When
grade
you look
9.
at when you look at the hazards, just to begin, just the potential hazards, all right, in a laboratory, if they even have it at the elementary level, though some do, they usually use general classrooms, or the potential hazards at a middle school, compared to a high school grade 9, much, much, much greater in grade 9 compared to those lower grades. So in other words, the hazard, so if you have more severe types of hazard, then the resulting risks are going to be greater for an accident to happen. And in fact, that is what happens. Also, they're on the low end of the totem pole all of a sudden. Remember in grade 8, oh, you're on the top of the mountain, man, you are the highest grade there, and blah, 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 everybody's going to respect you. Well, now you come into high school and all of a sudden you're at the bottom of the pile now. All right. And that's a psychological thing, believe it or not. And I see this. When I started I had several chemistry, but my other classes were grade 9. They put me in a grade 9 saying, wow, what? Just between grade 9 and grade 10 and 11 for the chemistry, big difference. Big
Absolutely.
difference. So you can see when you know all these other things, these components, as to why the accidents do occur, then it makes sense.
Right. And your last bullet there, what would you do differently now that you know this? You spend extra time on safety as a new teacher in grade 9.
Yep.
You review the procedures you provide, you model the behaviors that you want to see, the lab techniques that are expected. You don't tolerate any horseplay or foolishness in that laboratory. You have them do a
Enforcement.
student safety acknowledgement form. That's right, and enforce it, because really they can be a risk to themselves and others, and you don't
If
you don't want to be part of that.
right, if you don't enforce it, that sends a message. They're going to say, well, this can't be very important if the teacher doesn't, enforce what they're telling us to do for safety. And then that's how accidents begin to happen.
And the middle school teachers should also be doing a better job of preparing students for what to expect when they get into a high school academic laboratory as well.
And this is why it's so important several of the department meetings during the year be joint between middle and high school. So there is that understanding of what's happened in a program at the high school as opposed to what happens in the programs in the middle school. That's absolutely critical. And I absolutely would advocate when you go into a new position in the high school, check that out. And don't be shy about suggesting it to your department head. Oh, yes, housekeeping. I just have actually one word we could put on there. Hoarder.
Right. Ken, you and I do not need to film an episode of Hoarders in every science department we go into. There's no need for it.
Oh, it's just wild stuff. Employees are expected to actively engage in prudent instructional space housekeeping practices. This means keeping it neat, tidy, and organized. Tidy bowl. In addition to chemical, biological, and physical hazards, remember, such as trip, fall, slip, fall, electrical hazards, are to be eliminated, and the spaces should be neat and orderly to prevent accidents. As always, make sure that the safety items such as the fire extinguisher, eye wash station, drench shower, fume hoods have no obstructions. That means don't store anything in front of them. Please, all right? You're looking for trip fall hazards, slip fall hazards, all kinds of things. In an emergency, you need to get to that eye wash station. Remember, you probably can't see too well, all right? You don't store ring stand rods right next to the eye wash station because you got to put your eye down. You don't want to impale it with one of those rods, right? Which has happened, right? No obstructions, require inspections, and have appropriate signage as mandated by law. A tidy, labeled, and organized laboratory is a safer space for all occupants. And the idea about hoarding, all right? Now, the temptation, I was there, trust me, I know, all right? Because you don't always know when you order each year how much money you're going to get to buy what you need for your hands-on work with the students. And when you get more than you expect, you buy extra. And if you get it several years in a row, well, now you have to store all that stuff. And all of a sudden, you now have been graduated to a hoarder level, right? So please don't hoard things. Have good housekeeping. It's to your interest and your students for a safer teaching learning environment.
And for those of you following along at home, the OSHA inspectors use the tidiness and neatness of those laboratories as the leading indicator of how deep they're going to start poking around and digging in that science department. So by everyone keeping it clean, tidy, organized, it really reduces the potential for having any infractions.
Not that they're going to do it, not that they're just going to do a drive-by if it's a nice tidy bowl, but
correct. That's exactly what I was going to say.
But he is correct, and I have been involved with a number of these in Glastonbury and other places. In fact, sometimes I'm consultant by the state OSHA here in Connecticut because they don't have a specialist in lab safety, and I'm helpful to them. And yeah, you know, they're pleased. They are pleased to see Tidy Bowl because that means you give a rat's ass about safety and the safety of not only yourself but also your students. So yeah, it's a big plus. It puts you up a notch or two, which is a good thing.
And statistically, in a school with 6 laboratories, 5 people have tidy labs and 1 person is the pig pen. And if you don't know who Pigpen is, that's you. That's
Nice.
well, that's just the reality, Ken.
True. The CHP, the Chemical Hygiene Plan. Ensure that all members of the science department have access to a current chemical hygiene plan. And remember, that is a requirement under the laboratory standard. Contains the necessary standard operating procedures, SOPs, for responsible chemical management in the school. And it's well beyond chemicals. Also, in many ways, we include biological, physical hazards, most certainly. This is for the science department and managed by your designated CHO. Now, I would also add here, it's also for your STEM department because you do have sciencey stuff going on in there. Other departments who use HAS communication, as I mentioned before, or the standards such as art, CTE, cosmetology, agricultural science, and others have access to potentially hazardous material. Now, the point is they use hazardous chemicals, but nowhere's near the volume, nowhere's near the severity of chemicals that are used in science. And this is why they basically are not under the laboratory standard, but are under the HAZCOM. In fact, science teachers used to be under the hazard communication plan until OSHA woke up finally one day and said, gee, you know, it's less safe in a science lab than it is even in a tech and in an art room. Maybe they need a special mandate here, a standard that's going to help better protect them. Well, there you have it. For information, your chemical hygiene plan needs to be reviewed at least annually. That's an OSHA requirement. Science Safety can review your existing CHP and make recommendations based on our risk management matrix. Inventory. What do you got? Chemically speaking. Ensure that there's an accurate chemical inventory. That does not mean one that is 10 or 20 years old. All right. When maintaining inventory, any chemicals that have exceeded their shelf life, and not all, but most chemicals do have a life cycle. From the point that you purchase and open that cap, it starts ticking. Okay. Some are very short. I mean, sometimes weeks, then you have months and then years. If you have something like sodium chloride, that will be to the end of time. That's one thing. But peroxide builders, that's a different story. Now you're looking, sometimes it can be a day or two, depending what's in there, what you're using. So the point is, make sure it's up to speed here. There should be an SDS, safety data sheet, for every chemical in the inventory on site. And it needs to be kept for 30 years for legal purposes. This is requirement by OSHA, right? So you don't chop it up, cut it up, and throw it out if you're out of the chemical. You must hold on to those. Someone has to have those records. Usually it's a chemical hygiene officer. Any chemicals that have broken lids or damaged vessel bottles must be dealt with immediately. You don't put it on the shelf for tomorrow, because tomorrow almost certainly will never come. It gets hidden away somewhere and you forget about it until there's an explosion or a fire. Any liquid spilled must be contained and handled in accordance with chemical hygiene plan, chemical spill safety protocol. And ensure that all accumulated chemical wastes have been labeled and are scheduled for hazardous waste cleanup. Usually that's an annual event, right? And you should put aside in trays along with the safety data sheets. And you can put that in your chemical storage area separate on a separate shelf. Things that you're going to get rid of legally. You don't take that tray full of those used chemicals and bring it out to the soccer field and pour them. All right? Please. All right? There are laws against that. Don't do it. You're looking for trouble. Engineering controls. Oh, very important. Safety controlled measures that have been built in as infrastructure in the laboratory, including, right, you have a UV goggle sanitation cabinet, all right, you're going to sanitize. Now remember, one other quick note here, goggle sanitizer, it only takes care of the biological hazards, not the chemical, not the physical. You're using UV, all right, ultraviolet waves that will kill or destroy any microbes. Doesn't wipe the chemical off the goggle. All right. No. Fire extinguishers, ABC, and in cases where you have chemicals such as sodium, potassium, and the like, you must have a type D. Fire blanket, master control switches, gas shutoff, water, electrical, eye wash stations, plumb, the certified version, drench type safety shower, ground fault circuit interrupter, GFCI or GFI outlets, machine guards to shield the worker on 3D printers and all types of power tools you're using, machinery, equipment, and tools. Be sure to understand how to use each of these items. Engineering controls are absolutely critical, all right? If those are not in place, you don't do the hands-on lab.
And as a new teacher, make sure you know how these work and test them so you know what to expect in case of an emergency. You never want to use an eye wash station the first time because someone's got a chemical in their eye. You need to experience that and know how it works, as well as everything else that's on there.
It's amazing when I do mock OSHA inspections and I'll go and I'll turn on the eye wash station, push the lever, this mucilaginous gook comes up.
Ugh.
All right. I swear I'm seeing the old movie from Hollywood, The Blob. I mean, it's just craziness. And I'll say to the teacher, excuse me, have you ever used it? Well, no. I said, obviously somebody doesn't test this once a week, which is required under OSHA. Oh, gee, really? Yeah. I would hate to have need of that to engineering control, especially if it was my own eyes, never mind a student.
Oh, terrible.
Oh yeah, very important. Students have additional needs. Certainly that needs to be addressed. Teachers need to remember that there is a difference between making accommodations for students and modifying assignment assessment for students. According to NSTA, again, this is better professional safety practice. Accommodations are changes made to lab environment. You're changing the lab environment to available lab equipment or how the lab is being completed by a student. Modify a lab would involve changing the content of the lab itself and therefore modifying your expectations of what the student is required to complete. You may need to do both depending on the student, all right? But the point is it needs to be addressed. You cannot assume someone coming in a wheelchair or on crutches is going to have the same physical needs as the other students. No, it's not going to happen. So that must be addressed. Certainly, you can contact your special education department. They can be very helpful in working with you to make sure, in fact, that is done. Equipment assessment. Most of the equipment used in instructional spaces may need repair or replacement. They have life cycles, all right? And if a piece of equipment is not working order, do not use it. Do not use it. I was doing a mock OSHA inspection one day in a chem lab in a high school. A kid comes up to the teacher, the chemistry teacher. Geez, he said, the portal here on my goggle, it popped out. Oh, the teacher says, oh, don't worry about it. See me at the end of the period and I'll give you a new one. I'm looking at her, huh? So what did you say? No, excuse me. I took teacher aside. I said, you need to replace this now because if this kid gets splashed and it goes through that hole, he gets blinded, you're it. And you know what? I'll be the expert witness on the part of the family to tell, Johnny, come back here. Let me get you in it. Yep. If an activity is performed with faulty equipment, including engineering controls, and an accident or an injury occurs, the teacher and the administration, all right, there's joint liability, but the teacher gets the bigger piece of it and can be legally and financially held responsible. Again, if a reasonable and prudent person would not conduct the activity because of faulty equipment, neither should the teacher.
And as a new teacher, you need to recognize things like glassware. Inherent hazard for sure, because it can break, it can drop, it can chip, it can score. If you are doing anything involving heat and glassware or chemicals and glassware, do not use something that's chipped or scored, because it has a tendency to then break, shatter apart while it's being used. And these are things that come from experience. So listen to your department chair, listen to the experienced teachers, and don't cheap out on economy anything, especially when it's in a laboratory. That's just a little note from me.
Let me give you another little note from me. If you have a microwave oven in your lab, some of them do, make sure that if you're going to heat something, it's not in a sealed container. And I have actually seen this happen. Sealed container, got it on for a minute. Well, within 30 seconds, the liquid in there started boiling and it literally exploded. It blew the door of the oven off, just missed somebody near there. All right, that could have been catastrophic. Right. So again, you've got to be very careful. Know the parameters of operation of the equipment that you are using. All right. Very
well said.
Very important. And just because it says Pyrex on it, don't think it can't break.
Correct. You got to inspect it. Make sure you have a duty of maintenance to make sure that it's all in fully functional order.
And train your students.
Yes.
To come to you directly if there's an issue or they believe that there is. All right, appropriate PPE, personal protective equipment for the occupants. This includes indirectly vented chemicals, splash goggles, meeting. Now, please don't go to the dollar store and buy safety glasses or goggles. I can almost guarantee, almost 100%, that they don't meet the ANSI ISEA Z87.1 D3 standard. All right, please make sure when you order things that it says right on the side of it, it should say Z87.1 D3 or just Z87. Whatever. All right, make sure it's got that on it, which must be worn when handling hazardous chemicals or biological liquids that have potential to splash the ice. Goggles or safety glasses with side shields. Notice again, with side shields can be used when working with physical hazards, power tools, hand tools, springs, glassware. Nitrile gloves and non-latex lab aprons or laboratory coat appropriate for materials should be worn when using chemicals, biologicals, heated items, certain tools, etc. PPE is required during the setup. Now, here's the important piece. The big three. Before they do anything, that means before they even gather the materials. That's the setup. They've already got their PPE on. The hands-on piece of the activity and the takedown. All three are required to have PPE, right? All three. The use of hand protection in school, science, instructional space usually means appropriately sized nitrile gloves. Appropriately sized, please. If your kid is a small or a medium, whatever, don't hand out all extra large because the glove's going to fall off, right? Make sure it's appropriate. For special hazardous chemical PPE requirements, consult the safety data sheet, section 8. For appropriate PPE use. When I do expert witness work, that's one of the things I want. I want to see the SDS, and I'm going to look in section 8. And if it says, you know what, you're supposed to have indirectly vented chemical splash goggles and you use glasses, oh, you're done. So make sure that PPE fits people in the room. They're available in different sizes for a reason.
Look at that beautiful table. Just look at it.
Moving right along.
This is from Ken's book, not from James's book. That's all I'm going to say.
It's getting late. Identifying hazards in STEM program. Identifying possible risks in STEM programs can often be achieved by combining appropriate safety training, and level of awareness. Very good. Follow the proper procedures and safer operating procedures in the lab instructional space, as well as recognizing possible sources of potential hazards. You can prevent possible accidents or injuries. And again, this is not limited to the laboratory instructional space, even a science classroom where demonstrations go on and the like. All right, you want to make sure things are the way they need to be, tidy bow-wise for that safety. Appropriate engineering controls, for example, PPE. Perform a hazard analysis, risk assessment, and take appropriate safety action prior, that means before, to any planned lab activity. Now look at the types of lab hazards. You have chemical hazards, all right, and we're talking about, these are just examples, the hazardous chemicals, the toxins, corrosives, flammables. Biological hazards, microbes, plants, genetic materials, animals, and the physical hazards, slip, trips, falls, projectiles, equipment, machinery, noise. Oh, yes, and electrical shock. Moving right along.
Moving right along. One of us likes to separate that out. One of us doesn't. So, Ken, you win this round. So here it is. Especially as a new teacher, they need to understand.
This is critical. All right, and I call this driving home safety. Not that I created this, but driving home safety. AAA method requires teachers to perform potential hazard analysis. That's the first A, analysis, before each lab demo and each lab activity, as mandated by Standard 45 in the NFPA. Then conduct a resulting health and safety risk assessment, the second A, and take the best possible safety action, the third A. In order to perform this three-step approach to understanding and evaluating the safety hazards, you must follow these steps sequentially. You don't figure out what the actions are without knowing what the hazards or the risks are, right?
Right, and this slide right here does a fabulous job of summarizing all of that.
Is this one you made? Oh, anyways.
Well, actually, yeah, it is.
Hazard analysis. Determine the potential physical, chemical, biological safety hazards as outlined on the SDS in tandem with teachers' experience, safety notes and hands-on lab activities, use of chemical hygiene plan, and trusted. Notice the term, don't go to just any old safety authority, all right? Not any old safety authority. What ones that are trusted? That includes your colleagues. Sometimes you have cowboys and cowgirls on the staff. Stay away. Risk assessment. This is the second. Phase 2. Make use of the SDS sections 2, 5, 6, 10, 11 that highlight information for safer handling, such as potential hazards, fire safety, accidental spill information, stability, toxicological information. Okay. Now we know what the hazards are. We know what the resulting risks are. So what do I need to do to make it safer? Safety action. Determine appropriate safety action based on the types of safety hazards and resulting health and safety risks. Top 3 actions to consider based on OSHA's hazard prevention and control. See, resources include engineering controls, administrative controls, and PPE, which you realize already. Okay.
And Ken, really this comes down to the educator performing that evaluation and really asking themselves, does the risk exceed the educational value or utility of doing that? And if it does, they can make substitutions or come up with alternative mechanisms to demonstrate that curricular outcome. But as a new teacher, sometimes you just want to just plow through all of those things without thinking through the safety aspects. Even some veteran teachers have that problem.
And let me add a little footnote. Sometimes you're going to come into a district and you're going to inherit a curriculum, a written curriculum that might scare the bejesus out of you. And I mean that literally because I've been there, right? Having no idea about safety, promoting all the use of all these hazardous chemicals, hazardous procedures and the like. And sometimes you just have to say, hold on, I volunteer. We should review this, et cetera, et cetera. Now, I know you might consider yourself putting yourself out there. I'm not tenured. I don't have it. But look at the flip side. somebody gets hurt by you following that when you knew it was unsafe. You're going to be it legally. You don't want to be there. And I'm not trying to scare you. Please, I'm trying to raise your level of awareness so you can face it and make a difference.
And Ken, here's my footnote to that. From my experience in this science education space for decades, if the voice in your head says, is this safe? I can tell you the answer. It's no, it's not. So listen to yourself, trust your instincts. That's, we could talk about that all day.
Oh, did you just flip through 2 slides?
No way. No.
Oh, okay.
See, I'm just that good.
No, I know I saw something else. Anyway, AAA basic hazard and risk actions. Okay, first of all, review the SDS safety data sheet, safety concerns, identify any possible risk areas, including health, handling, storage, flammability. You're getting the point here. Review all equipment, materials, apparatus, tools, and machinery involved with planned activity before doing it. Review the procedures and materials, concentration, timing, sequence, waste management, and emergency. Never mind how you're going to use it, how you're going to get rid of it. All right? What are you going to do with the waste? Right? And if you have an emergency, if you have a spill, an explosion, what are you going to do? Those are things you need to know. If you've not performed the activity before, test drive the experiment with a colleague and evaluate unexpected hazards, results, and risks before you do it with the students. Allow for substitutions of hazardous chemicals for less harmful ones while meeting curricular expectations. That's not always possible. So you just don't do it sometimes. Ask if educational value of doing, oh, wait a minute, who already told us this one? Oh, ask if educational value of doing the activity outweighs the risk, right? AAA, driving home safety approach will clearly identify potential safety hazards and resulting health and safety risks. The instructor must make a safer determination about all planned activities prior. Look at this word. This has come up so many times, all right? Before you get in the trenches and you're having the kids do it, make sure from your mind it is safer to do.
This is a great guide, Ken. This is from our book about things that really should not be in there.
That means don't have them in your inventory. I'm not going to read them all, but I mean, some of the obviously, for some people are shocked when they see alcohol burners. They are extremely dangerous. They're extremely explosive. You're looking to get burned beyond belief. Leave it at that. Bacterial cultures, please. I have seen labs where the teacher has students. This is even at the middle school. Oh, we're going to find out how to grow bacteria cultures. Take these plates and you're going to walk around, go under the water fountain. Oh, and go into the lavatories, go around the toilet bowl, into urinals in the men's, and oh yeah, in the cafeteria, under the cafeteria tables. Bring the things back, and we're going to heat them up in that incubator. And wait till you see the next day or two. Wait till you see all the growth. Excuse me? Do you have any idea what you are culturing? All right. I mean, you can be culturing some deadly, and I mean deadly stuff that's in that at that site, especially in those particular areas. All right, please, no bacteria cultures. Very dangerous. Very dangerous. Body fluids, that goes with, you know. And I remember years ago, we used to have every kid, here's your blood type. Oh, yeah, let's take a look. Blah, 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 blah. Saliva, urinalysis. Yeah, you send the kid to the lab, they come back with their test tube with the urine in it. Oh, yeah, that's real safe. Common allergens, pollens. I mean, you may have a kid that's got nasty respiratory issues. And I mean, excuse me, but people have died from this type of stuff. All right. Not good. Flammable liquids, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Again, I don't want to go through all because our time here is limited and we have to move on. But please, if anything, remember that list.
Exactly. Look at that, Ken. We got here right to the very end.
9
We're
o'clock. Well, my
we're
piece
gonna
is
open
good.
this up to questions from the audience. And as they're typing their questions into the chat box, or feel free to send them to me directly if you don't want to have that out there publicly. Science, Safety, and Accelerate Learning, we have partnered together to provide access to all of these safety solutions across the USA. Accelerate Learning is the exclusive partner for our products, and together we are making schools safer through education and awareness. You can contact them directly. They are also the people that bring you STEM scopes, and we are delighted to have them as our trusted partner. And those are some of the references we use. We'll be sending all of this off to you. And now, Ken, it's my favorite time of the webinar where we open this up to those questions from the audience. Is there something about animals in the lab in the classroom? Oh, yes. Yes. There are certain poisonous animals, certain things you should not have. Same with plants. Ken, I'll let you talk about that. That's in our book as well, but go ahead.
Really?
Yeah, I mean,
You sure
I
you
love
want
your
me to
voice.
Oh, gee, okay, thanks. Anyways, okay, animals and plants, by the way. It's not just limited to animals, all right? First thing you need to do is you need to check with a school nurse, all right? Very important to find out, are any of your students, do they have allergies? What are they allergic to? Are they allergic to certain plants? Are they allergic to animals, et cetera, et cetera? That may be absolutely prohibitive in regards to you having live animals in the classroom, right? But let's assume, again, and by the way, another piece with that, if you're going still want to put them in there, I would let the parents know. You send a notice home or email them, however the process is used in the school, that you plan on having certain plants. Is there any problems? They can email you directly. And again, that just covers your butt safety-wise. Now, if you're going to put them in there, you need to know where you're going to put them, how they're going to be taken care of, including feeding, cleaning, et cetera, et cetera. What are the safety protocols you're going to use for students in handling? Do they have to wear gloves? They have to have eye protection on, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And also, what are you going to do if one dies in the classroom? And that may not sound like a big thing to you, but it is for some of these students. So you need to address that also. So yeah, it's great to have live animals, only safer types of animals, nothing from the wild, please, because you don't know what types of microbes they're carrying. And it also, I would add the products of animals, owl pellets, for example. All right.
There's a whole list of and there's a whole list of care that goes with having an animal too. It needs to have its protection. It needs to have those essential things like water and food and shelter and heat and waste management all taken care of as well. So there's all these different aspects that we talk about when looking at the safer use of I don't want to call them classroom pets, but animals, reptiles, different things in the classroom. Dr. Ken, did you see that question came in? Given how important these topics are, is there a movement afoot? I like that. Is there a movement afoot towards putting actual safety training into pre-service science teacher programs? I love it.
Actually, there are several sources out there, including SSI and other professional associations.
There are, yes.
Like the NSTA. Yes, no, very, very seriously. This has been wanting for years, I might add. And I know myself and James have been absolute safety crusaders, if I might say that, for decades. And still today, even with all the work that we've done, and we've saved many a school, believe me when I tell you that. I'm not bragging about it. There's a lot more ways for us to go. Things are getting better, but the point is, tonight was important for you because now you know what your employer is required to provide for you. right? Under OSHA, it is the employer's responsibility to make sure that you get trained. It's the employer's responsibility to make sure you have a safer teaching, learning environment, right? And sometimes you have to remind them of it. But in the past, new teachers were unaware of that, and they were just told all this crap by administrators. Oh, don't worry, you'll be held harmless. You don't have to worry about safety. Yeah. Please spare me. Trust me, right?
It,
I have
yeah.
been involved with teachers being sued and in courts and in tears and losing their jobs, et cetera, et cetera. So please use this information that we've provided for you tonight. Very important.
And I'm going to add another piece to your answer, Ken, which is still today in 2023, you can be hired as a science teacher in, make sure I get this number right, 42 states, because only 8 states require you to have any formal safety training prior to becoming a science teacher, certified science teacher. That is absolutely remarkable to me, remarkable. So that's why many organizations exist, to help elevate that level of safety, compliance, and awareness.
Let me add something else to that. A big
Please.
problem that is really developing. In many states, for you to be certified or licensed, you'd be certified or licensed in physics or licensed in chemistry, because they are different sciences. And there's different kinds, there's some common, but there are some other very different safety issues in those various types of sciences. What's happening is, because of the teacher shortage, especially science teachers, a lot of states now are looking to go, well, we'll just have license based on general science. They're no longer requiring a teacher to be hired as a physics teacher by having physics certification or chemistry certification, which is absolutely correct. Trust me, I taught physics and chemistry and mathematics, but I also had the preparation for that academically and the experience. There are big differences. And you know what? I hate to even say this, but it's like flushing safety right down that drain. It's just sad, and that's another fight that's I've been watching it, and it's been developing. Sorry, I just had to say it.
Listen, it's all welcome stuff here. I love these pearls of wisdom. Ken, we have another question, and it is this. Our high school had students make, okay, now, Ken, put your 5-point harness on. I got to restrain you a little bit. Our high school had students make some homemade petri dishes with agar. Okay. Then the students were asked to swab the floor, doorknobs, and the desk. Are there any safety risks needed to take into account when performing a lab of this nature, especially if bacteria grows on the agar?
Don't do it. That is the bottom line. It is totally unsafe. Totally unsafe. You just don't know what you are culturing. You have no way of knowing. And just think how many ill, sick people kids come to school sick, employees come to school sick, and you're going to culture that bacteria or virus in a petri plate. And oh yeah, let's make slides of that, which totally exposes everybody in that laboratory. No,
yes.
Do not do it. Please say no. It's totally unsafe. It's unacceptable.
Have
I said too much?
No. I'm gonna take that up one more. My James Palsick, as a chemical hygiene officer, would say you need to put that under bleach tomorrow morning as soon as you get to school, and then after 15 minutes, get rid of everything that was touched with that. Inoculating loops, the petri dishes themselves, all of it. If they're glass ones, scrape it out, run them through the dishwasher, run it through an autoclave, sterilize them if you want to keep them. If they're the plastic disposable ones, get rid of it. That's a very common lab activity that happens in biology to show like growth and all that other stuff. But there's so many different ways that you can demonstrate that, using simulations, using other less invasive or less hazardous mechanisms to achieve the same result. If anyone has questions like that, just ask Ken and I. If you don't want to do it here publicly, do it offline, but we're here to help.
Let me add one other piece to that, my own experience, all right? Some states, including my own state, have adopted green, clean chemicals
Correct.
that can be used supposedly to clean, sanitize, or disinfect. Well, that must mean, let me see, bleach, sodium hypochlorite. I don't think that that's known as a green chemical per se.
No, would you say hydrogen peroxide is?
Not
I would use
exactly.
concentrated hydrogen peroxide myself.
Well, no, my point is, I
right.
fought it as a chemical hygiene officer, and already went all the way to the state level, and guess what? I won. And science labs now in the state are allowed to use sodium hypochlorite for those kinds of situations. Oh, gee, you know what the funny part is? Look at the safety data sheet on some of these green, clean chemicals. Right. Very interesting. Let me just leave it at that. Very interesting.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Well,
Dr. Ken, we've gone a little over time, but everyone stayed with us, which is great. Everyone, again, it has been our privilege and our honor to have you with us for this informative webinar. Hopefully we have minimized or mitigated that the new teachers are no longer as big a risk in your science and STEM departments. As always, Dr. Ken, you did a fantastic job this evening, and I can't thank you enough. And before we go, everyone, thank you again for attending. Dr. Ken, do you have any final words of wisdom for us tonight?
You're killing me. Be safer.
That's right. Stay safer, everyone. Thanks much. Have a great night, and we will send you out all of this and some resources for you in the next day and a half. And have a great week. Stay safer. Thanks much.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.